Hello, everybody, and I want to tell you how excited I am today because you know what? This episode you're listening to right now and watching will be dropping on January 2nd. And so, Happy New Year to everybody out there, 2023. Let's kick some ass, take some names. Uh, and what a way to spend that upcoming Friday, the 6th. And that is seeing Candyland, the movie. I've seen it, I'm telling you. You've read some of my posts. This movie is changing the dynamics of what you think a horror film should be, can be, what's out there. And we're going to speak today, again for the first time, to Jeremy M. Rosen and to John Swab. This is the creative team that is bringing you such fundamentally shift, and I'm not overselling here, people, movies like Body Brokers, like Ida Red, and now Candyland just takes it to the next level. So I want to thank you both for being with me today. How are you both?
Such a pleasure, Darren. Thank you so much for having us. It really means the world to us, your support. John and I are in our own world, and we often don't know how these films are perceived, so it means a lot. Thank you.
Well, let's just kind of start with the sort of buzz for Candyland. It is very positive, and from a lot of influential people. Surprised, not surprised? Of course, it's welcomed.
John, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. I just I turned my video off because you'll have to let me know, Jeremy, if my audio is going in and out. I'm still finessing my Wi-Fi out here. Sometimes it helps if the video's off. Yeah, we're always surprised when people take notice to what we're doing. We're kind of in our own world. We quite enjoy these films, but we're always shocked when other people are like, "Hey, that was really, really great," or we really enjoyed this, so.
I want to ask you one thing about Body Brokers, because you might have seen myself and others, by the way, put that on as one of the most influential pieces of media specific to harm reduction. I don't know if when you guys thought of that movie that it would have the such a positive impact on, you know what, we got to change the way things are fucking done here because it ain't working. Did you realize that when you made it at first, or is that just a happy circumstance? Both of you, either one.
John, I mean, Darren, to give credit where credit's due, of course, I would never dream of taking credit for the creative prowess that is Body Brokers, based upon, in part at least, on John's firsthand personal experience. And the moment he shared it with me, right, since we rock all these films together, I was floored. I think as many, if not most, would think, is this real? And shining a light on something that is very well known amongst people who know, right? But the rest of us who may have the good fortune, I'll call it, to not have any firsthand experience with addiction, it is truly eye-opening and a lot of perspective, and ignorance is bliss, right? So when John brought this to me, I was floored, and it was such a difficult film to make. And this is all martyrdom aside, but the irony lies therein, right? No matter how notable and helpful and overdue this light that we shined on it may be, the financiers, for lack of a better moniker, took a lot of convincing. So we had to, I mean, not to get into the weeds, but when we were halfway through shooting this film, we had no money left. So it was quite the scramble, and we figured it out, and the rest is history, I suppose. Hindsight's 2020, but we're very, very proud of it. And to add just a very both eerie and also cathartic life and art, and the intersection between the two with our dear departed Michael Kenneth Williams. So the fact that it took on that added meaning as a tribute to him is truly humbling, and frankly awe-inspiring.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It looks like John dropped out for a minute, but he'll be back.
I'm here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So your thoughts when you were putting this creative thought process together, when you made the commitment to telling this story, did you have in your wildest dreams that it will have the impact that it has?
No,
No, we have no video, just so you know.
Yeah, no, I know. My audio plays better without
Sure.
the video. No, I didn't have any idea that it would, Darren. It was just that kind of thing where I knew the story needed to be told. And then once I got the initial reaction from Jeremy, where he was like, is this real? I mean, those were the first words that came out of his mouth. And once he said that, I knew, all right, we might have something here. I mean, because it's, it's taking people into a world they have no idea of. I mean, treatment and recovery was such a closeted thing that most people had no idea that this could be going on. So,
the term serendipity sometimes is thrown around loosely, but it's not. It came at the right time because things are changing. And so I want to thank you for that. I've said this about you before, John, and it's not hyperbole. You are today's Elmo Leonard. You tell some amazing stories of Americana, if I can use that term. How do you, when you're meeting with Jeremy and you have to talk about all of these different factors that are reality based and trying to make a story, make a movie and tell a story, that you stay true to your vision and not give things up? Because with Candyland, as I segue into that, it could have been very easy to go, oh, it's too much of this. It's too much of this. You're going to lose this demographic. I know, Jeremy, we may want to talk about when you were looking for locations, you kind of had to move around the margins and get a little gray as to where you're going to put it. How do you stay true to your art and to the story that you want to tell with the reality of the financial backers and who's going to see it? Walk us through that process, both of you, starting with you, John, because you're the creative heartbeat of this. How does that happen?
Well, I mean, it all starts with my relationship, Jeremy and I's relationship. He and I like being a team and kind of being two sides of the same coin, and the security that brings, knowing that we both have each other's back, really kind of makes everything possible, because it's like he and I versus the world. So it's kind of like, all right, he reads it, we talk about it, we kind of discuss, the vision for it, where we're going to shoot it, how we're going to do it. And then from there, it's kind of like, just get the fuck out of our way, because we're going to make this thing happen. And, we call up our friends and we just get it done. So, I mean, it kind of, he and I talk a lot about kind of the secret ingredient being our friendship with these movies. And it truly is, because, the movies are fun and we enjoy watching them. But I mean, really, it's about the friendship. I mean, he and I having meals together, traveling around the world together, the laughs. I mean, that's really why we do it. It's not for the money or for the glory. It's really just kind of, it's ironic. We met, by happenstance and kind of got into making movies together as business partners, but we've kind of grown into, the best of friends, and that's what kind of keeps this thing going. So I'd say, I write these things and I'm always very excited to share them with him and see what he thinks, because once he buys in and we discuss it, then it becomes ours. And then from there, we get to share it with everybody else and get our friends involved and make it into something that's real and tangible. So, I guess the short answer is, we got each other. And so it's kind of like from there, the security of it, I know it's going to be protected, because we're both protecting it together. So
beautiful. And Jeremy, anything to follow up with that?
Well, I'm going to cry, Darren. It's so humbling. Coming from a talent representation background, I am not at all accustomed to such gratitude and such a two-way street. And ironically, that's one of the many reasons why I wanted to get into this business, is to have more involvement and more of a creative partnership, instead of just living vicariously through music clients throughout my years as a lawyer and a manager. So, I mean, to hear John say that, it's very humbling and flattering. And I, to echo that sentiment, yeah, it's very much our friendship. As I really mean it when I say it, and I've said this in many different settings. If it weren't for our friendship, there's no way I'd be making movies, because I've done it with others, including some very notable folks who I have the utmost respect for. But it's very different. It's much more arm's length. So the fact that he and I can commiserate and laugh about things, often at one another's expense, it is through the inevitable and inherent trials and tribulations, right? That are and is independent filmmaking, right? It's certainly not for the faint of heart. And as with anything worth pursuing in life, right? There's so much trial and error and rejection and frustration, and it's had this strange kind of Buddhist quality to it, if you will, where we're forced to go within, right? I mean, the moment you're living and dying upon external validation, be it box office or streaming success or critical acclaim, I think is the moment you're lost. So I think we finally learned how to enjoy the process. And so it's been more about life and friendship than filmmaking. So that's incidental and secondary.
There's so much you want to unpack there as we kind of dive deep into the movie Candyland specifically. But you mentioned something during the West Coast premiere, and I won't go into details, but about last minute having to change some locations. Now, this is for both of you, a jump ball. Does that kind of thing, of course, you don't want that to happen, but does that kind of motivate you in a way? Let me get this done. I love this. Let me go grab this. Or is it like, oh, fuck? Or is it both?
I mean, Darren, I do most things in my life out of spite.
Right.
For
to the club.
For that's just the alcoholic in me, I think. I got sober out of spite at people that thought I couldn't, and I remained sober because of that to some extent. And a lot of my success in life has been completely out of spite and defiance. I don't know if Jeremy's as spiteful as I am, but he's certainly as resilient and resourceful, if not more so in some areas than I am, to an extent. But we both don't like to lose, and we don't want to lose at somebody else's expense. We want to be responsible for the loss if it is to happen. And so, I'll let him go into more detail about it, but we were supposed to shoot it Candyland in Oklahoma, and the resources from the tax credit were not available to us, and so we pivoted immediately, packed our bags, got in the car, and drove to Montana because we were unwilling to give up. So
that's great.
Yeah, I think where do I start? So Oklahoma, right, to those who are not familiar, John is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So a place where I think as your prototypical LA cat or New Yorker, right? We don't know anything about Oklahoma or Tulsa. I honestly, I'm not embellishing. I could not tell you where it was. And now 6-7 years later, it's become another home for me. And so the relevance there, of course, being John tends to write all of his stories with specific Oklahoma locations in mind, which in my experience is very unique and also seamless and efficient, because normally people are looking to reverse engineer things, right? Well, I have the story now. Where can this story come to life? But John has a specific gas station or a specific parking lot or house or street in mind. And it's unbelievable. He's a walking, talking location database. So to integrate that so seamlessly into these stories. So you can imagine when we had the rug pulled out from under us and decided just right off the bat, just 25th hour to pivot to Montana, where I had recently met the film commissioner there. And she welcomed us with open arms versus what became a very crowded Oklahoma. Irony there is John and I helped innovate the film program there as the first. Yeah. And now you've got everyone from Sylvester Stallone with Tulsa King and the man himself, Martin Scorsese, with the $200 million Apple film, Killers of the Flower Moon, which will come out next year. So on the one hand, it's amazing we helped put Tulsa on the map with film. But on the other, we're not grandfathered into anything, right? So there's not any priority, and we still have to compete with those limited resources or for those limited resources. So in that case, as John mentioned, we lost out. But yeah, to go with that spite theme, there was no way We weren't going to just go home with our tails between our legs. We were going to make Candyland. So, all right, Montana, it's not the flat plains of Oklahoma. It's the Northern Rockies. So talk about serendipity, finding those beautiful, vast, big sky vistas, as they're called in Montana, big sky. And boy, did it serve the story in a way that we could have never dreamed of.
It really does, without giving anything away. It really does. And, you know, I'll be the snarky bastard now, if you don't mind. You know, Oklahoma needs to understand, and my background's politics, unfortunately. You need to continue to feed the people who brought you, you know, recognition. And we know that with the gentrification that's going on in Brooklyn right now and some of the other things. You know, I lived there when nobody wanted to live there. And now I could not buy a place there if I wanted to. So, you know what I'm saying? But my point is, there's these niche markets that I'm telling you, the minute this movie comes out, that gas station, that truck stop in Montana is going to be a destination for knuckleheads like me who want to go visit and take a photo in front of the place that Candyland was filmed. And what happens there? You got to eat in the local diners, you got to stay in the local motels, the hotels. There's going to be a whole thing. It happens, you know.
Well, funny enough about that point, Darren. This is right on topic. The Lazy J Motel in a nowhere place, and I say that with the utmost admiration and love, but it's middle of nowhere, called Big Timber, Montana. So that Lazy J Motel was featured, their claim to fame, in The Horse Whisperer.
Oh, right? Wow, nice.
Which featured, I think, maybe a very young Scarlett Johansson, of course, and a Robert Redford. But the point is, they're still getting mileage off The Horse Whisperer decades later. I think they still have a poster or a plaque even there at the motel. So it's hysterical. I mean, who would have thought Horse Whisperer to Candyland, kind of opposite ends of the spectrum? But yeah, so it's that big fish in a small pond scenario. It's all relative. And yeah, I mean, we love Oklahoma. We're as loyal as they'll let us be. But we won't be loyal to a fault, and the show must go on. So we'll pivot wherever else to get these things made.
Absolutely. I already see pictures of people holding a cross in front of that door that the cross knocks on. And I bring that up because that's in the trailer, so people have seen that already. So, John, if you could tell us a little bit, what inspired you to make Candyland? What was the thought process that went through that?
There's a through line here, Darren. It's spite and resentment. And and you know, I mean, Jeremy and I we're film fans and film lovers first, and you know, we're always talking about the movies we see, and you know, inevitably, I guess in the last, and since we met each other, you know, there's been a lacking in movies that we want to see and the kinds of movies we want to see. And you know, I think with the streamers of the world and people gravitating more towards that platform for consuming movies, it's caused those companies to, you know, pivot towards safer material and you know, easier viewing, because they're trying to attract the most people to their services. And I understand that as a business model, but it certainly doesn't bode well for, you know, pushing the envelope. And you know, this movie kind of was written as like almost a joke. I mean, I wrote it 2 Christmases ago over a week. And you know, when I got done with it, my wife read it and was like, wow, this is the most of you I've ever seen in any of your scripts. And I was like, oh, well, that's pretty cool or scary. I don't know, depending on how you view the subject matter. And I shared it with Jeremy, and he was like, this is great. Like we should do this, and we can do it for cheap. And so, I mean, the idea came from, I always thought a truck stop and lot lizards would be a great kind of foundation for a horror film. There's just so much there to work with. And then you sprinkle in some fundamentalist, you know, cult members, and you're off to the races. So yeah, I mean, it was, all the makings were there for an interesting film. But the idea and the drive to write the script and to make the movie, yeah, it came from not seeing this kind of movie being made anymore, you know, and wanting to see it, you know. So
you've mentioned on other interviews and just listening to you both and reading some stuff about you, that you gather around some friends, you gather around some people that believe in the same vision that you both do. But talk a little bit about your process of selecting these characters, because Olivia Luccardi did a great job as Riley. I mean, it killed me, and Owen Campbell as Levi. I mean, and I want to talk about her character because she's sort of a leader. She's sort of, this makes sense. Again, I'm not going to go into detail because the movie hasn't been out yet. But Sam Quarton, Billy Baldwin. I mean, you get these people in there, and they do a great job. Talk about your process of putting together your cast, because there's continuity between people who've been in other films that you've been in and new people, and it just gels. And that's not an accident. You can have an accident one time, maybe twice, but there's too much data, as some people say, between the chemistry of your cast. How do you create that culture?
Go ahead.
After you, John, please.
No, I mean, I think, culture is a top-down kind of thing. And, the way Jeremy and I approach making these movies, I think we've worked with a lot of these people enough now that we're kind of all on the same page. There's a shorthand from top to bottom between, from crew to cast to producer, director, writer, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's very much an energy and a vibe on our sets that people are attracted to and like to come back to and are willing to come back to at a price sometimes, but in terms of casting, I mean, it takes talent to spot talent, and Jeremy is acts as the casting director in these movies, and we have a lot of discussions about cast. I mean, that's kind of the most discussions we have are about cast because chemistry is so important. But once we get actors there, whether we know them or not, I like to think that how we operate and how we run our program is attractive to these people to where they buy in and thus become a part of the fold and feel like a natural addition to our kind of our repertoire of actors. So, and Jeremy's got more color on that.
Perhaps depends how you define color, but long-windedness and stream of consciousness and digression, then yes, plenty of color. Yeah, honestly, Darren, a film I did some years ago, prior to my partnership with John, was at the insistence of the very well-known director, hired multi-Academy Award-winning casting directors, and it was amazing. I was in awe to see them work. And with the utmost respect, though, I realized, well, I think I can do better. I said, I mean, it may have been a bit arrogant at the time, but I said, all due respect, and we're paying them all this money, and they have all these relationships, but I don't see it. I don't see the personal attention, or I don't see the fan, which is who John and I are. And I said, the thing, and that spite theme, the through line here, John and I were very reluctant to delegate things that we know we can do better. I think there's this, and to the vibe of our sets and our processes, it's very unique. We like to give people enough leeway, right? I mean, to do whatever they want, to take the initiative, because that's what we do. So we want and expect for everyone that we bring into the fold to do the same. And that's more on the crew end, but the casting end, yeah, I mean, I think things might be shockingly unorthodox for some. It's not for the faint of heart, not only independent filmmaking, but also the cast and crew. Naturally, there aren't going to be as many frills or shoot days or creature comforts, right, on one of our sets. However, it's going to be one of the more badass, unique, worthwhile projects. And we know that in our heart of hearts, right? And although we have no idea how we're perceived, the fact when people come back and say things to us, it's very, it kind of wakes us up. People go, oh my God, well, no one makes films like you guys do, or I can't believe you had me back, or whatever else. And at first we just kind of dismiss it and say, well, okay, he or she is just being flattering and diplomatic. But when we hear it time and time again, and we're many years and films into this now, and it's the exception, not the rule. Rather, it's the rule, not the exception. And it's so now we believe it to be true, maybe.
Well, you should.
Yeah, so it's our favorite films of yesteryear, of the 70s and 80s into the 90s. We love that. I think there's a lot to be said for. I mean, you don't need to go much further than look at Brian De Palma, look at Martin Scorsese, look at their troupe of the Pacinos and Hoffmans and De Niros. I mean, that's kind of we endearingly refer to Frank Grillo as our Charles Bronson, right? I mean, we love that, and it's
only better looking.
Yeah, touche. Better hair too.
Yes.
We have a great time with one another, and why not? I mean, subject to the financials, of course. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. Not to sound too producerial or lawyerly, but ultimately everything is just to a certain extent. It's subject to getting these things made, right? So it's not as though we have unfettered carte blanche. We have as much leeway as we can within the paradigm of getting these movies financed. Right. And by the way, it's all relative. It's not a $200 million Scorsese film. It's a much smaller Roxwell film. So we pride ourselves, as Frank, speaking of, told me just the other day. He said, "You guys are developing quite a reputation. You make great movies for no money." And then I said to him, "Boy, did you just coin our new corporate tagline?"
It's interesting because as you're telling me this stuff, I'm thinking of this really is a look into a John Swab movie, which is people don't like talking about the money part. People don't like talking about this part of that. But a John Swab movie says, fuck no, why not? This is the reality. And we have to live within this paradigm. And I think people are starting to find that refreshing. And I think that's kind of some of the many reasons why your films hunt so much. I want to talk a little bit about Owen Campbell's job he does. And he is he's a wonderful actor, we know that, and with wonderful writing, wonderful direction. But you see him, for example, in Body Brokers, and he's this one person, and you see him, as Levi in Candyland, and he does some great acting here, and I hope he gets the accreditation for it that he should. Boy, he can just go to that place. John, I'll start with you, of course. Were you surprised, or did you know he had that in him?
I definitely knew he had it in them. There are certain actors, and Jeremy and I kind of have a running list. A lot of them will reappear in our films, but that we're just huge fans of. And, a lot of the times Jeremy and I get more excited about, people like Owen or our friend Billy Blair, who plays a small part in a lot of our films, or Bruce Davis, who plays Santa in Candyland. There's all these like little characters that I don't think anybody knows the name of, but Jeremy and I are just massive fans of. We quote their lines daily to each other. And Owen is one of those actors that's like, I truly think Owen is he's like a young Edward Norton to me. That's what he feels like.
Good call.
He feels like a Primal Fear Edward Norton. And there he is. But so, and there's no denying that. You get him on screen. The way he acted in Body Brokers, like the way he kind of dropped his shoulder and gave me that strut as his intro to the character of Sid. I'll never forget it because I know Sid. I know the real Sid. You know them, Darren. You've seen these kids. And the way he carried himself, that was it. And no one's never been to rehab. He's a great guy, but like, and then the way he plays Levi, he's got this angelic kind of James Dean thing going on. And it's amazing. There are actors. He's one of them. Frank's one of them for me. Melissa's one. There's more that we've worked with, but it's just
Alice
such
Englert.
A pleasure to give them
she's one.
Alice Englert. Absolutely. No, the list goes on, honestly. And it's just such a pleasure to have them around and hand them the keys to the car and say, just drive, man, just take off and go. And I'm going to sit over there and watch with Jeremy and laugh my ass off that, you're here. So So I mean, but Owen is one of my favorite actors, and I was so flattered that he was willing to really go there for us as Levi. You know.
I think, Darren, if the script is not there, I don't see how the movie can be there. And if the performance is not there, I don't see how the movie can be there either. So I think casting is 2/3 of the battle, and that's being conservative with it. I think exactly, to have the faith in these folks like Owen, we know what they're going to do. And I had a long chat with Owen the other day, and he attended the New York premiere that we had the same night as the LA premiere for the NYC Horror Fest, and did a Q&A there. I mean, he's into Broadway now. Owen, I mean, my God, he's it's also on the one hand, it's very it's flattering and validating that we're championing folks like Owen. On the other hand, it's a bit frustrating that I mean, whoever said this was a meritocracy, right? So I mean, it's the most talented people probably no one will ever know about.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, the casting is, there's no way we could have made this without people who are willing to go there. And as Mel Brooks, I think, most famously said, either you got it or you ain't. And that's it. I mean, you can't teach someone to be funny. You can't teach someone to be scary or dramatic. And if it weren't for casting these folks, we wouldn't be making these movies wouldn't continue.
Yeah. You mentioned a name earlier, Bruce Davis. And John, talk about just a little bit about him, because I mean, 27 years as an Oklahoma police officer. Did you subconsciously even tap into his experience for the Billy Baldwin character of the cop, or because when you have an asset like that, and you kind of your movies talk about these margins, I mean, subconsciously even there has to be some sort of osmosis about hearing these stories. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. No, I mean, we didn't use Bruce as a resource for Billy. Billy is I would hope Bruce is
We lost
in real life.
Oh, no, we lost you.
Yeah, well, I just meant stories that maybe he might have heard along the many years.
Just to pivot quickly, and while the Wi-Fi comes back on for John, Bruce, when we cast him in Ida Red, and he played the antithesis of an OKC homicide cop or detective. Right. He was. He played a villain and did it so famously. And I remember on a hot mic, we were in between takes, and you had Josh Hartnett and Frank Grillo after Bruce had done a couple of takes in his role as Suge in Ida Red. And I overheard them talking about, where'd you come from? Kind of thing. Like, what you were a detective in Oklahoma City for 27 years. And I mean, he so crushed it that he's such a natural, and he's such a sweetheart. I mean, we love Bruce, and we wouldn't dream of doing any of these without him. Provided he's still interested and available. But that is the secret sauce. I'm so glad John said that. This concept of an ensemble, no matter who we have in the proverbial lead roles, we surround them with our murderers row ensemble, and it becomes so much more enjoyable. And we know we're going to have those bits and bobs, as the Brits say, that noir quality and that through line. I mean, you can see in certain things that we have other films of ours playing on TVs and other films. I mean, yes, we're the guys who do that kind of thing. We love what we're doing so much that we want to incorporate it wherever possible.
That actually is a very funny point. I wanted to maybe ask another time is, but I bring the Bruce Davis thing only, John, because I know my dad is a 20-year New York City policeman and a 14-year U.S. Marshal.
Wow. He
used to tell me stories about guys like the Billy Baldwin character, and just the greatest guys in the world. But here was their thing. Their proclivity was the prostitutes up the street that were probably the ones you shouldn't be going to during the AIDS epidemic. Seriously, they had this, what people would call flaw, or this tick, but they were very loyal, and kind of that's what I meant, because I found that character to be very unique.
Yeah, I'm happy you love Billy Baldwin's character as much as we do, because we, I mean, he Sheriff Rex is one of my favorite characters I've ever written. He enrages a lot of people. I have one of his props right here with me. This guy.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Desk.
Yep.
So, but we love Sheriff Rex, and I'm glad you enjoyed him too.
I want to talk before we kind of move along. I want to let you guys go, but the character of Sadie, I kind of misspoke before. She's the character that I meant was the real leader. She had a lot of, it was so much depth in that character, because sort of she was the fulcrum for the audience. Oh, maybe I should believe what's going on here. Maybe I should step out. What's going on? Talk about the development of that character.
Yeah, I mean, Sadie is played by Sam Corton, also my wife. Yeah. So
that's why I led that to you. I wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's got unfettered access to me in terms of asking me questions and kind of figuring out who the character is. And Sam's greatest talent as an actor is that she is so natural. It can sometimes almost even seem like she's not doing anything. Because she is just so comfortable and kind of sinks into a character. So, and I know that because I've worked with her 4 or 5 times at this point, that I knew if she was on screen as Sadie and as kind of the leader of this group, it would kind of make the audience buy into the movie and trust the movie and trust the reality of the movie, because they could find somebody that they felt comfortable around. She's a very warm spirit and person, and just kind of has this cool factor, very natural. And I thought that was kind of an important, star or sun for the rest of the cast to orbit around, just to keep the movie anchored in reality.
Speaking of that reality, there is a very, obviously there's a lot of crime and murders going on over the course, slashing and whatever, but without giving anything away, there is a very violent scene that unfortunately is probably happening somewhere right now in a truck stop or someplace in America. And the unfortunate thing is, and this is my own editorializing in my own head, is as we're watching all this, we don't realize that this is the danger that these people put themselves in every day, because they have no place else to turn, or this is the only place they feel they get some sort of respect and love, as the people, as the sex workers did in this movie, because they really were the only ones that had each other's back. And I thought you handled that so well. Again, I want to try really hard not to give anything away, because this is sort of the nature of the business, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was important. I feel like when I watch the movie, I don't know that everybody else feels this way, but I'm having a lot of fun kind of learning about this world and kind of being pulled underneath the water, I guess, with these characters into this underbelly for about the first 25, 26, 27 minutes. And that's when this scene that you're talking about happens. And it was important to kind of let people remember or remind them that, like, yes, you're having fun, but this is still a very, very dangerous world. And this is one of the harsh realities of this world, is that this kind of thing happens. And so, the way we shot that and the way we played it out is we really let it hang there. And, you've got to sit through it. And, I wanted that to be the case because I wanted to remind people that, like, you're laughing and having fun at these people's expense and with them, but this is the reality of what happens to them also. So I felt like it was important to, make the audience experience that.
I get you. And, before we wrap up, I got kind of 2 questions I want to ask. And one goes to you, Jeremy, and that's music, especially, and that's your background, is so important sometimes in movies. But I think, unfortunately, sometimes movies rely too much on it. But you kind of, both of you hit a home run with the music in this movie. It's another character. It sets the tone, it sets the pace, but it doesn't overwhelm. Talk about your process with that. And again, collaborating, of course, with your partner, John.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. It means a lot to us. Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think you're walking a fine line, right? While you want the music to be memorable, and to your point, a character unto itself, but not to hijack or overwhelm the other creative elements. So finding that balance, I think, can be difficult. But frankly, back to the spite through line, I've had the good fortune to work with so many iconic artists and musicians throughout my music career, and to be able to bridge the gap and to find some of my favorite songs in our films is amazing, right? To me, it really touches the fan quality for me, where I can call in favors and cash in chips with the artists themselves and their managers and publishers and record labels, and getting things, as you can imagine, back to the budgetary topic, for pennies on the dollar. That's the only way we can make it happen. So I see that as another challenge, one that I really enjoy. What is my or our favorite song that fits for this scene, that I can get for a lot less? I think by large measure, folks would be preempted by or deterred by even pursuing a song like that, knowing it would be cost prohibitive. But it's another challenge. So I really love it when, for instance, Little Dixie, our next one coming out, when there's a pivotal scene and it's Billy Idol, Flesh for Fantasy, and we want the reaction to be, well, I don't understand. And even after the Candyland screening, is that a temp cue, or when are you going to finalize the music? No, that's the music. So it's all under the auspices of wanting this to look like a multiple of what we actually have financially. That's one of many ways in which we're trying to ramp up the production value, make it that much more commercially viable based upon, it's use what you have, right?
Right.
By way of any resources, relationships, locations. So that's just another kind of feather in the cap. But yeah, John and I think by large measures, a music supervisor is really just pursuing songs that the director mandates or provides. In our case, it's very much a two-headed monster, right? So I believe in efficiency, right? So I'll let John know where my relationships lie within the context of a certain vibe or scene, and then we'll kind of reverse engineer it or narrow it down from there. And then we may narrow it down to, say, a handful, and then wherever I find the best deal, then that one will kind of win out. Or it can be, I remember specifically during Run with the Hunted, our first film together, we were sitting at dinner in upstate New York in Woodstock, and a song came on the airwaves or Spotify or whatever the restaurant was playing, and I said, "Oh my God!" this melancholic, iconic song by the Hollies, "The Air That I Breathe." I said, "Can you imagine that?" We like doing contrast. When you think a scene is suggesting some vibe, we want to go 180, and we got a lot of them in Ida Red too, where you go, "Well, wow, when this inmate, right, in the interrogation room is about to off himself because he doesn't want to go to the electric chair, which is still a reality, if you can believe."
Unfortunately.
So my God, he's gonna hang himself to Madonna's "Crazier for You." Why was that? Well, I happen to represent the songwriters, John Lind and John Bettis. So kind of go where your relationships are, and it just worked so well, we thought. And back to Candyland, though, I grew up on songs like Pets from Porno for Pyros, and they've actually reunited. I happen to represent Dave Navarro, who's in a band with Perry Farrell called Jane's Addiction. Right. So Dave introduced me to Perry, and wherever I navigate the relationships, and John, gives me all the leeway to do it, and he kind of roots for me, and I come back like a dog with a bone. And like, look, I got crowded house, and we love it. So there it is.
So this is my last question. It's going to be the toughest one. I sort of teased a little bit when we first set up this interview, Jeremy, that I had a question for both of you, and you must answer. And I use the word "must" in air quotes. Before let's find out about Little Dixie, and we say goodbye. Until next time, because it's hard to choose your favorite child, right? You love them all, but here's the question, and I'm gonna start with you, John. Who is the better dancer, Dallas Walker in Ida Red, or Levi in Candyland, and why?
This is a great question, Darren. And when you see Little Dixie finally, you'll be adding 2 more names to that. So
Excellent.
and it's tough. It's like having 4 just brilliant children. Just because it's my first child, and I got to see him walk first, and metaphorically, I'm gonna go with Dallas Walker.
All right, that's good, and you gave a reason why. Very good. All right, Jeremy DeBlock.
Same question.
Yes.
Yeah, it as much as I love Owen as a friend, and as I call it, the Levi shuffle. Why I am also choosing our dear friend Frank Grillo, aka Dallas Walker and Ida Red, is because you'll appreciate this more than most, Darren. It really brought me back to my New York roots.
Sure.
Right, because in my formative years in the city, right, you'd go to these clubs like Limelight and Twilo and all these the Tunnel, all these old school clubs. And Frank, also as a New York guy, an Italian, it brought me back there, and it was so nostalgic and cathartic. Where he was basically doing that 80s nightclub shuffle.
That's what it is.
Before he was about to execute this young woman. So I go, oh man, that's so eerie, and also the context. It was very special because man, that location, you probably weren't expecting such a long-winded context, but that location, it was this really dodgy mobile home or trailer in the middle of the woods, in the middle of Oklahoma summer. So the heat and humidity were horrific, even for an overnight shoot, as this was. I remember John was, of course, on set in the mobile home. My G&E team, and I think it was a practical joke, I take it personally. They put me in the middle of the woods. Okay, there are bugs all over me. I've got my hooded sweatshirt on. I'm spraying off over the place. And I remember just earlier that day or the day prior, I'd gotten the green light for Naked Eyes, Promises, Promises, another one of our gems, I think. And I remember one of the other actors on set said, "Oh, play this remix version." I remember running into the woods and I said, "No, play the original version." That's what I cleared. But it just works so famously, right? I mean, and the way that our sound mixer, Cole Anderson, looped that in. And so it felt like it was on the radio or Spotify or something when Dallas Walker enters the home. It was so amazing, the contrast of Frank transporting back to a New York nightclub, taking his hat off, the sweaty gelled hair, and doing this whole thing. You're like, wait, what's happening there? Are they having a romantic dance? Or is he about to kill her, which he did. So as much as I love Levi, and as much of a pure thespian as Levi is, and also it's much more difficult to have a rhythm to Dwight Twilley's "I'm on Fire" than Naked Eyes, Promises, Promises, one of the former hits of the 80s. So I give that to Owen and Levi, but Frank, I mean, and the prominence and the legacy, I think, of that scene. Yeah.
All right, so 2-0 goes to Dallas Walker, kids. And this year it might be the only thing that Dallas wins, and talking about the Cowboys. Anyway, so lastly, before I let you go, tell us a little bit about Little Dixie. I'm excited about that as well. And let's tune everybody up for that.
All you, John.
You take it away, man. You take it away.
Little Dixie. So we're so humbled to world premiere at the 52nd edition of the International Film Festival Rotterdam. So we're off to the Netherlands in a few weeks. And then Paramount will release it the following week on February 3rd in select theaters and everywhere you rent and buy movies, which seems to be the par for the course these days, the so-called day and date release model. But Little Dixie, it is truly what John and I love in movies. I mean, boy, Frank Grillo, again, the lead, Doc Alexander and Little Dixie, calls it unapologetically masculine. So make of that what you will, but we love it. It's the type of film that we don't feel people are making, and I say that with all humility. It's something that is very much inspired by so many of our favorite films, but I think truly an aberration in 2023 it will be when it's released on February 3rd. So Doc Alexander, Frank's lead role, he's the prototypical ex-military, finds himself doing the bidding of a pretty dodgy Oklahoma governor, Richard Jeffs, played by our dear friend Eric Dane, of McSteamy Grey's Anatomy fame, and for the more contemporary younger folks, Euphoria, of course. So Frank is doing the bidding of the Oklahoma governor. They served together in the military. They had that bond, and ultimately come to find out, without ruining anything, there's this complicated relationship with the Mexican cartel, and all sorts of hijinks ensue as Doc attempts to toe the line and navigate a truce between them. When things go awry, it's quite the wild ride, and it's has many elements of John Wick, and again back to Charles Bronson, and a Narcos vibe, of course, and actually sharing several Narcos cast members. We were very proud of the Mexican casting, and yeah, and we really, it was a full blown Tulsa shoot, and some of the most iconic locations there, including the Philbrook Museum, one of the greatest art collections in this country, and some classic cars, and great wardrobe and music, and drag queen karaoke, and I'm hitting the beats, but it has all those wonderfully disturbing and noir-esque John Swab qualities, and boy, we sure had a blast making that in late 2021. So just a year later, off it comes, and we're grateful to our partners at Paramount, and it's a lot of fun. We're very excited for it.
Excellent, excellent. Anything, John, to add to that before I let you both go?
No, I mean, Darren, you are, we make these things, and we don't really ever look up, we just keep moving forward, but getting to accumulate and meet and have friends like you and supporters like you, and after meeting you in person at the Candyland premiere, I feel like I can call you a friend now. But
oh, absolutely, thank you. Right back at. I'm humbled by both of you.
You are one of the reasons that you make it feel worthwhile talking to people like you and your questions. And I didn't know where you were going with you got to pick one. I thought you were going to say you got to pick one movie, but when you said dance, I really just warmed my heart. And it's just so flattering and humbling that you're paying attention and really paying attention, because we're very proud of these things, and getting to share them with people like you is why we do it. So thanks again, man. We really appreciate it.
And Darren, as my people say, it's very fitting during Hanukkah. You're a real mensch, and that
means a lot to me. That means a lot to me. Yeah. I want to wish you both all the best, and onward and upward, my friends. Be well. Bye now.
Cheers, Darren.